The cameras didn't just capture a moment, they triggered a meltdown of commentary, slow motion replays, and a tidal wave of people online saying the exact same thing: this looks rehearsed. Because what was meant to be a soft, heartfelt public appearance somehow flipped, twisted, and spiraled into a viral debate about authenticity, intention, and whether Meghan Markle can step in front of a lens anymore without half the internet accusing her of performing instead of feeling. The second the photo surfaced, the mood online shifted from neutral scrolling to full investigative energy. Eyebrows raised, clips zoomed, comments stacked by the thousands. Not because of what she wore, not because of who she stood next to, but because of how she moved, when she smiled, and the almost cinematic timing of certain gestures that critics insist felt just a little too polished to be spontaneous. And once that narrative started forming, it spread like wildfire through dry grass. People weren't just watching the appearance, they were analyzing it like a scene in a drama where every glance had subtext. The lean-in hug that happened right as cameras aligned. The soft nod held for just a second longer than expected. The hand placement that conveniently faced outward, perfectly visible in every shot that followed. None of these actions are unusual on their own, but stacked together in the age of hyper-scrutiny, they became evidence for those already convinced there's always a performance layer. That's when the phrase began popping up everywhere: this feels staged. Not whispered, not debated, quietly, declared boldly in thumbnails, captions, and comment sections that read like courtroom transcripts written by people armed with pause buttons. And then came the first viral replay.
So it's just, of course it's important that public figures respond to this tragedy, and it's the most ghastliest of tragedy, but you can't help thinking there's a heavy dollop of opportunism and insincerity in this, which I think most people would find, not to their liking.
That short segment lit the fuse. Viewers clipped it, slowed it down, circled moments, and narrated their own interpretations. Supporters saw warmth and poise. Critics saw awareness of every lens in the vicinity. The same footage, two completely different stories, and both sides absolutely certain they were right. Because in celebrity culture now, perception is reality, and reality depends entirely on who's watching. What made this situation louder than the average celebrity nitpick was the setting. When a public appearance happens in a space tied to real people, real struggles, real stories, audiences expect rawness. They expect messy humanity. So when expressions appear controlled and gestures look symmetrical and photo-ready, some viewers don't see compassion, they see choreography. Fair? Maybe not. Inevitable? Absolutely. And it didn't stop at that one clip. Old moments began resurfacing, stitched into comparison videos like a highlight reel of camera-ready Meghan, with narrators claiming there's a recognizable switch that flips the instant shutters start firing. Whether that's simply media training or something more calculated is a matter of opinion, but opinions online don't stay quiet.
We have one here. We can all sit down here because we all want to get down on the floor. I can't be the only one. No, come on. I was thinking if it was Archie and we had all these toys in the middle, but I think it was...
That resurfaced moment added fuel to the narrative that this latest appearance wasn't an isolated perception, but part of what critics call a pattern. Side-by-side edits appeared within hours. Look at the posture. Look at the angle. Look at the expression shift. The internet turned into a body language lab run by people who learned analysis from binge-watching crime documentaries. Meanwhile, supporters pushed back hard, arguing that being camera-aware is literally unavoidable when photographers are feet away, that public figures are trained to present themselves calmly, kindly, and visibly. They say calling that staged punishes women, especially high-profile women, for being composed under pressure. But that defense struggled to drown out the louder, flashier accusation videos racking up views by the minute. And then another angle dropped.
Meghan, in the video, she appears to move this woman's wheelchair without asking her permission, and the individual stops mid-conversation, kind of shocked, as Meghan moves her towards the group for a photo, because, no one loves to document their good deeds more than Meghan Markle.
That clip became instant meme material, not because anything outrageous happened, but because viewers claimed the positioning looked too perfect, the movement too aligned with the frame, the timing too convenient. It was the kind of subtle thing that means nothing, until thousands of people decide it means everything. Suddenly, the discussion wasn't about the event itself at all. It was about optics. Optics aesthetics layered on optics, the science of being in the center without looking like you're trying to be in the center, the impossible balancing act of appearing natural while standing in front of a wall of cameras waiting to freeze your face mid-blink. And here's where the situation really spiraled. Timing. Because critics online began connecting dots, speculative dots, unconfirmed dots, but dots nonetheless, suggesting this appearance arrived at a moment when positive visuals would be especially helpful. No proof, just patterns people feel they recognize. And feelings travel faster than facts every single time. That's how the storyline evolved from this looked posed to this was strategically timed, and once that leap happens, the debate moves from body language into motive territory. Motive debates never end quietly. Supporters countered that every public figure schedules appearances, that reading hidden agendas into every handshake is exhausting and unfair. They argued that Meghan, like anyone constantly under scrutiny, can't win. If she doesn't show up, she's called distant. If she does, she's called calculated. And they have a point. But online narratives don't operate on balance. They operate on momentum. And right now, the momentum says this photo op didn't land the way it was probably intended to. Instead of softening her image, critics say it hardened their skepticism. Instead of creating a feel-good visual, it created a debate about authenticity. Instead of shifting attention toward the people she met, it shifted attention back onto her, and not in the glowing way public figures hope for. That's the cruel paradox of modern visibility. The more polished a moment looks, the more people question whether it was real at all. And here's the twist no one really talks about. Once someone is labeled staged, there is no such thing as an unstaged moment in the public eye anymore. Every smile becomes suspicious. Every tear becomes timed. Every gesture becomes a potential talking point in a reaction video recorded by someone in their bedroom with a ring light and strong opinions. So whether this latest appearance was carefully planned, completely organic, or somewhere in between, the outcome is already sealed in the court of internet perception. Critics believe they saw performance, and they're not backing down. The headlines may move on. The event itself may fade, but the clips, they're archived now. Looping, reposting, reanalyzing, added to compilations that build an ongoing narrative frame by frame. And as long as that narrative exists, every future public moment walks into the room carrying the weight of this one. Because the real story isn't just about a single photo op, it's about the growing belief among critics that nothing in front of the camera is accidental anymore, and the equally strong belief among supporters that she's being judged by a standard where authenticity is demanded but never recognized when it appears. That tension isn't going anywhere, and just when people thought the debate would cool off after a few loud reaction videos and a weekend of sarcastic memes, the conversation actually deepened, widened, and turned into something bigger than one appearance. Because now the focus isn't just on what happened during that moment. It's on the idea that every public move Meghan Markle makes is being filtered through a lens of suspicion that's growing sharper by the day.
English.
Meg. What's fascinating is how quickly the internet shifted from dissecting gestures to constructing a larger narrative, the kind where individual clips become chapters and an ongoing story critics believe they've been watching unfold for years. A story about image control, camera awareness, and the impossible dance between visibility and vulnerability. Because once people decide they see a pattern, every new moment becomes confirmation. Every angle becomes proof. Every still frame becomes a piece of a puzzle they feel they've already solved. And that's exactly what happened here. Within days, commentary channels weren't just replaying the latest appearance, they were building timelines, pulling screenshots from different years, pointing out similarities in posture, facial expressions, even the way she turned slightly toward photographers at key moments, arguing that what casual viewers see as grace under pressure, critics interpret as calculated positioning designed to maximize the shot, not necessarily the sincerity of the interaction. It becomes less about what she's doing and more about what people think she's thinking while she's doing it. And that is a battle no one can visibly win, because intention is invisible. And when you're already controversial, people fill in that blank with whatever storyline fits their existing opinion. Supporters argue that this level of scrutiny borders on absurd, that no one else has their smiles studied like forensic evidence or their hand movements analyzed like secret signals. And they insist that being media-trained, composed, and photogenic doesn't equal manipulation, it equals survival in a spotlight that has never exactly been gentle. But critics counter with a different view, saying the issue isn't poise, it's presentation timing, claiming that the most emotionally resonant moments always seem to occur with the camera conveniently placed, as if life unfolds in perfect frames when she's around. That's the kind of claim that that can't be proven, but it also can't be fully disproven, which is exactly why it spreads so fast. Because ambiguity feeds speculation, and speculation is social media's favorite food. Another layer to this latest backlash is the idea that audiences have become hypersensitive to what they call performative compassion, not just from her, but from public figures in general. And when someone already carries a reputation, fair or not, for being image-aware, even genuine acts risk being interpreted as strategy instead of sincerity. So when she leans in to listen, some people see empathy, others see optics. And the divide between those interpretations is now so wide, it might as well be two different realities playing out on the same screen. Critics say this latest moment crossed a line not because of anything dramatic or shocking, but because of how polished it looked, how symmetrical the visuals felt, how every still image that emerged seemed ready for a magazine spread instead of a spontaneous encounter. They argue real moments are messy, awkward, uneven, not perfectly framed with soft smiles and balanced body language. But that argument has a flaw too, because public figures are almost never caught in raw, unfiltered situations. They're surrounded by cameras, handlers, noise, expectations, and the pressure to represent something bigger than themselves at all times. So what looks staged to one viewer might simply be someone trying to hold it together under relentless observation. Still, perception rules, and right now the perception among critics is that this appearance didn't humanize her. It reinforced the belief that every public step is part of a visual narrative carefully managed down to the angle of a shoulder. And here's where it gets even more complicated. Because the louder the accusations of staging become, the harder it becomes for any future moment to be seen as genuine. Which means even if she shows up somewhere quietly, without photographers, without announcement, the lack of coverage might be twisted into another narrative that she only appears when cameras are present. It's a trap with no visible exit. Some online voices have even suggested that this level of scrutiny reveals more about the audience than the person being watched, that people now expect emotional authenticity on demand while simultaneously distrusting it the second it appears on a high-resolution camera. They say we've entered an era where compassion must look imperfect to be believed, where polished presentation automatically equals insincerity in the eyes of a skeptical public trained by years of influencer culture and brand-managed vulnerability. But critics don't buy that argument because they insist the discomfort they feel isn't random, it's instinct, a sense that something feels curated, and instinct, right or wrong, is powerful fuel in digital discourse. And so this latest photo op, instead of being a fleeting visual, has become a symbol in a much larger conversation about authenticity in public life, about whether anyone famous can truly be real once they know the world is watching, and whether we even allow space for sincerity anymore when cynicism gets more clicks. Meanwhile, headlines continue to frame it as a backlash, commentators continue to label it a misstep, and defenders continue to call it unfair targeting. Each side digging deeper into positions that were formed long before this particular moment ever happened. That's the real reason this story keeps resurfacing. It's not just about a smile or a hug or a camera angle. It's about trust, or the lack of it, between public figures and audiences who feel they've been sold too many carefully packaged emotions over the years to accept anything at face value anymore. And unfortunately for her, she's standing at the center of that cultural tension, where every gesture is both seen and doubted at the exact same time. So did this photo op truly backfire, or did it simply land in an environment where no image can escape interpretation, suspicion, and endless replay? That depends entirely on the lens you're looking through. But one thing is certain, this wasn't just another public appearance that faded quietly into the scroll. It became a flashpoint in the ongoing debate about whether visibility equals vulnerability, or whether it's all just presentation once a camera is involved. And as long as that question hangs unanswered, every future step into the public eye will carry the echo of this one, with viewers watching not just what happens, but how it happens, when it happens, and who's holding the camera when it does. Holding the camera when it does. Holding the camera when it does. Holding the camera when